Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan, coming to you from our studio at Tech Town. I'm Jer Stays, and across the table from me is none other than the indefatigable Norris Howard. How are you?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that lovely intro. The Prince of Brightmo has returned here to share with you the news of everything happening in Detroit.
And there is much to talk about. As always, we're never, that's the thing. People say when they start a podcast, what are we going to talk about today? And I don't ever feel like we have that problem.
No, we never have that problem, and you should stop listening to those podcasts of people who say that because they just end up rambling for 90 minutes about things that are not important. These are. We start with a baby gorilla.
The most important of stories, but for the first time in the zoo's history, nearly 100 years, there is a baby gorilla. Bandia, a first-time mom, brought her beautiful baby into the world early Thursday morning. The baby is healthy and thriving under her care, says the Detroit Zoo. Father Mashindi and the rest of the gorillas received extra baby training in anticipation of the birth. They are currently keeping their distance, but seem very curious about the new addition to the troop. To give Bandia and baby a calm and quiet place to bond, the zoo says that the Great Apes building and the gorilla's outdoor habitat are temporarily closed to guests. The outdoor chimpanzee habitat, if you need some monkeys, is still open. You know, the Detroit Zoo has my favorite animal, and I am remiss. I have not, I've been to the zoo because I covered the water tower thing, but I'm remiss in seeing my capybara friends. That's my favorite animal, and it's right here in Royal Oak, Huntington Woods, whatever it technically is.
I love the zoo. I try to make it my business to go to the zoo at least once every 3-4 years. And I'm really excited that this baby gorilla was born because, you know, first of all, there are not a lot of gorillas in the world. So new gorillas is just a good it's just a good thing. But also, it continues to sort of continue raising its stature as a top flight attraction, a top flight zoo. I believe they just redid the Penguin House this year or last year.
Like recently, there's been a bunch of things. There's the beautiful polar bear exhibit. I know that some people feel differently about zoos, but I think it's important for a conservation point of view to bring animals like in person to people.
Yeah, and you know, another thing that I just think is really important beyond just conservation is just with the understanding that, you know, some of these animals without certain efforts will go extinct. And so I just think also it's just really cool to just see a gorilla or see an elephant or see a tiger. You know, like, it's just cool. Like, at the end of the day, I get it. I understand it. You know, would we prefer these animals to be in the wild? Of course. But, like, it's dope to just see a tiger. Like,
and a tiger that, you know, could win in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because
like,
the other tigers.
Yeah, the other tigers. I mean, I don't know. As a recording, they just beat Seattle. I think, what was it, 15-2 or something crazy like that? Like,
the team has a lot of false hope in my mind. Like I get excited, but then I have to keep reminding myself it's just not going to be that good.
No, and it's still the Tigers, so I anticipate us to be 13 games below 500 by the end of the season, so that's life.
All right, let's talk about Primark. They are set to open their first Michigan store at Great Lakes Crossing Outlets in Auburn Hills, September 12th, about a month from now. The new location will offer over 36,000 square feet of retail space with the latest, they say, fashion trends, household essentials, and beauty supplies at affordable prices. Now, Primark's a pretty big international brand. It's one of the reasons that we are mentioning this. The opening will bring Primark to 27 U.S. stores across 11 states. There are 450 stores globally. Couple notable things. The opening weekend will, of course, have like the party, right? DJs and all that stuff. But also, their sales associates start at $15.25 an hour with regularly stepped raises afterwards. So one of the reasons why they're notable, Norris, is that not only are they inexpensive, but they also, focus on better wages for their workers. And so that's part of this conversation.
Yeah, and I think from that point of view, that's wonderful. As somebody who has been to Primark in Boston, and I've been to Primark in London.
Okay, so give me the 411. Like, what am I looking for here? Because I'm not...
So think H&M just larger. Think about if H&M had a TJ Maxx version. Like if H&M had like a TJ Maxx style outlet. That's kind of like what Primark is like. It's like H&M scaled up times 10 and even cheaper. So it's you could go in there and get like $3 shirts and
$3 shirts.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I'm almost terrified. Like $3.
You should be. But the point is that it's dope for I need something today. Like I'm new in town or I forgot something on my trip or I got a massive stain on my shirt. I need a shirt right now and I don't want to spend $80. Primark is perfect for that. And it's really also perfect because you're allowed to get stylish clothes for not that much. So also if you're, a lower income person, you could get some stuff that actually like halfway looks decent. Yes, it's not the best quality, but it's going to look good and you can feel a lot more confident about yourself. And on top of that, knowing that they pay fairer wages than most sort of entry-level retail jobs do, it's fantastic. I've always liked Primark as a brand. I have a Primark jacket that I got in London that is still in good condition. So I think the quality of clothes is as good as you make it.
But you had a little bit of a reaction. Let's talk about it. Because look, we're friends. We can talk honestly.
We can. I hate that this is at Great Lakes Crossing.
Really?
I actively.
We're going to get angry notes from our Auburn Hills listeners yet again.
I hate it. And listen, Auburn Hills, y'all doing good. You guys got a lot of stuff. You got Top Golf. You got all the rest of the outlets out
But
there.
Top Golf's in trouble.
Yeah, they're in
Top
trouble.
Golf might not make it.
They might not make it, but I'm just saying it's out there. That's what they decided to put it out there with y'all. And now Top Golf is in trouble because guess what? It ain't enough people out there. And for me, is that people like to come. What we're seeing in the city of Detroit is people like coming down here to do stuff. We're seeing that more and more every summer. More attractions, more people wanting to come to the city to do things, have activities, do shopping, go to the restaurants. So for me, it's like this Primark should be down here. I'm not necessarily saying downtown because Primarks have
greater
downtown because Primarks have a massive footprint. So I'm not quite sure where you could put it. I don't know. Maybe Daddy G is listening. in the
Uncle Dan. Let's get it right. In fact, if you join our Patreon only Discord, there is actually a command thanks to Engineer Randy. You can put Uncle Dan and Dan Gilbert's head pops up.
Yeah, so maybe Uncle Dan is listening and maybe wants to put one in the new building down there, the new Hudson's building. But I think it should be in greater downtown because that type of retail is something that we don't have. The H&M is cool. The Gucci store is cool. We got Fenty coming down. All that stuff is great, and I love it. But, we need a massive sort of big box of people of all income levels can just be there and be in there all day long.
That Nike outlet store does really well.
Yeah, because it's affordable. And, it beyond that, it's great. It's a great location. And they were early adopters. You got to remember that Nike outlet store was one of the first sort of new retail stores down there at the beginning of sort of Detroit's resurgence, quote unquote.
Well, for years, I wore Nikes because that's what I could go pick up.
Right.
I actually shared on our Instagram. I don't know if you saw this, but all these pictures from 2015
I did
that
see
I
that,
shot.
yeah.
And it's crazy to see the amount of difference. I feel like it's very grounding to see less than 10 years. I understand the back and forth about the neighborhoods. It is a real thing. But also, it's good to remember the Herculean lift that greater downtown is. Like, you see the pictures that I showed, and man, there was a lot. It was hit.
It was hit. And you got to talk about even just, the Hudson's development. Shinola Hotel wasn't there. Capitol Park completely being rebuilt and revamped. You got, 6 new apartment developments down there over the course of 10 years.
Metropolitan, where the Monarch Club is.
Yep, Metropolitan Hotels down there. The Siren Hotel opened up within the past decade. There's a ton of stuff that just simply wasn't there. Huntington's headquarters, Little Caesars redone headquarters, LCA itself. We were talking about so much stuff, and I just think having something like Primark down there, which, like I said, is a massive footprint store, would be, in my opinion, a massive, massive win for downtown and a massive win for the city. But It's coming to Great Lakes Crossing first, so everybody out there in northern Oakland County will be able to enjoy this pretty cool retailer.
I got to imagine it won't be the only one.
I will hope not.
'Cause unless they have the luck of Chicken Guy, which apparently that's just melting.
Yeah,
That's just collapsing because
Yeah, it's
there
not
are
doing
enough
great.
chicken joints, by the way.
there are. We don't need any more. But I would hope that there's more, and I would hope that there would be a consideration for the city center. I just think out there it's just way, way, way too far for most people. And yeah, but yeah, if you're in Oakland County, you're going to enjoy it.
All right, in downtown Detroit, the Cadillac Square development, previously known as the Monroe Blocks, is facing what is promised to be a short delay. Crane's Detroit report that Dan Gilbert's Bedrock is expected to request a short extension from the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation to begin construction on the first phase of this. Now, the revised plan cuts the number of residences from nearly 500 to somewhere around 250 and cuts office space from over 850,000 square feet to 400,000, but adds a concert venue. The project has been in the works for years with multiple redesigns and a halted start in 2018. You know, Norris, I was at the original Monroe Blocks unveiling. It was an amazing party. They brought in like this beautiful tent, beautiful slideshow, all these dignitaries, and nothing's happened except like an empty block. And I'm not negative on this. I do think a short delay could mean spring or summer. Like, short is in the eye of the beholder. So originally it was, I think, supposed to start in September. I feel like short is going to mean at least the next season, like from a construction
next
point
spring.
of view.
Yeah, so we're thinking about next March, April.
And that's supposition. It could be longer.
It could. But sure, I want to see this developed. I mean, the Monroe Blocks was an ambitious project.
It's straight, like, so I shared on the Discord some photos from back then.
Yeah.
That thing looked straight out of Hudson Yards.
Yeah, it was an ambitious project. I would love to see sort of what the reimagined layout for this is, because a few things have happened since 2018. Number one, when this was first announced. Number one, a global pandemic. Number two, the nature of work itself has changed. So all that office space, we got to rethink that whole thing.
Okay, I'm skeptical even of 400,000 square foot unless they've already got a tenant in mind that we don't know about. Like, if it's already pre-programmed, great.
Yeah.
But we have so much office space that's going to be rolling off lease really soon.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the things that collapse or the other things, I don't know if there's going to be a collapse, but a lot of the hard landing of this is that these office leases take a long time to roll off. And once that happens, you're going to start to see more of a mess. And I know that I am in the minority of people saying, oh, things have changed. But I really think things have changed. I really don't know if there's a need for 400,000 square foot office spaces unless they already have somebody in mind, planned out, ready to go, which is entirely possible. But I just was so much on the market already. I know that office space like makes a lot of money and you can use it as a collateralized asset, which is what a lot of these people do, right? They hold on to it. It's fine for them to hold on to office space that's empty, to use it as a leverage.
Unless Bedrock itself is moving in there. Like, that's the thing I could think of. Is
one of their family of companies,
Yeah.
so they have something in mind.
Yeah, and something locked in, because I agree with you. I mean, I think about, unless you own the building itself, in the case of Huntington, like, that building's their building, so Huntington is not leaving that building. But the way I view it is that this is what caused that delay. They were having to rethink, what do? We don't need that much office space. The residential space, honestly, was going to be hit or miss.
I don't know. I don't like the lack of ambition with it because I feel like there's a lot of residential that we could do. And I would rather be like, okay, let's have great park space for now and then add on more residential as we go.
But to me, that's what the sort of concert venue is saying. I think what they've learned with the Monroe Block experiment during sort of figuring out what they're going to put there, and they've been putting different sorts of activations there drive-in theaters, concerts, skate parks, and all sorts of different things at that site. I think what they've discovered is that it's actually really cool to kind of have something right there next to Campus Martius that you can activate. So
One of our most popular social media posts is me in a bumper car.
Yeah.
Just and then going, like, people want those kind of experiences.
yeah, and so I feel like if you put something there, and then also I think what they saw with the NFL draft is that, like, hey, putting a stage there also makes it pretty cool. So I think they had some findings over the past couple years in which we could be more creative with this site, and we don't necessarily have to be over leveraged on something that we feel like might be collapsing right now.
And to be fair, my guess is there's going to be more tweaks. Like, I don't think we're done with changes on this.
No. I think the only thing at this point that might be solid is I think that the number of the residential units, which I believe you said has gone down from almost 500 residential units to now around 280.
Yeah, 250, 280. It's an ish.
Yeah, so I'm just going to round and we're going to say 300. So down from 500 to 300. I think that's logical. I think that number, they'll stick around. I think they'll stick around that residential number. But the office space, square footage was way, way too ambitious for where we are now in terms of the cultural work.
Let's go to the east side, which I know is not your favorite side, but you'll go there.
I'll go there. I got family over there, but you know what I'm saying? West side's still the best side.
Well, multiple reports talk about Detroit launching their first single-family waterfront home development in over 24 years or a quarter century at Shore Point Village on Greyhaven Island. If you're not familiar with Greyhaven Island, I don't blame you. It's like a little sliver of kind of luxury-ish stuff between Maharis Gentry Park and A.B. Ford Park. And it's would be counted in the Jefferson Chalmers kind of area. This project is 10 new homes with docks, high-end finishes, and 24-hour gated security. Prices start at $500,000 for 1,550 square feet. There will be tax incentives available because, look, this stuff isn't happening without an NEZ or a neighborhood empowerment zone exemption, because you can't make this. No one's gonna. You work around real estate too. Like, the reality is without an exemption, no one's buying new stuff.
No one's buying new stuff. You're not gonna buy it in the city, and you're also not gonna want to deal with all of the red tape with the city without the NEZ. So it's gonna be really important that this is there, which it is.
And it cuts the rate down to I think, don't quote me, but I think the state average, something like that. It brings the property tax rate to something kind of practical. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yes, we're talking about $500,000 homes. But I wonder what your thoughts are. The construction will be starting as reservations are made. What are your thoughts from a real estate perspective?
I think that this is actually quite brilliant. And the reason why I say that is because, in the city of Detroit, we do have a lot of land. We got, a lot of places that developers could build, but it's going to be difficult for them to build on it because they aren't going to get those NEZs and those tax abatements to allow them to sort of develop the land. There's a lot of eminent domain laws. There's a lot of people sitting on vacant land.
The most successful stuff in some ways that you're seeing new is kind of like the stuff with Great Water Homes, where where they are getting some things, but really it's about, okay, we're going to build by what the zoning is that is already attached to that land, which really speeds up the process.
It does speed up the process, and a lot of them they're not even sort of building, and this is no diss, this is just good because they're building some affordable housing units as well, where they're just throwing down a slab and putting a house on top of it, right? Like, there's a lot of that sort of development happening in the city with some of the newer builds, and that's okay. But what we lacked is sort of, how do we get those folks who live in Farmington, who live in Bloomfield, who live in Royal Oak, who live in Birmingham, to move back to the city? Because there aren't any there aren't any units. There's not a lot of vacancy of houses that exist in the current inventory for those people to buy, unless you're talking about massive investment.
And I want to turn this conversation on its head, because I think a lot of people assume when you're talking about Farmington and Bloomfield and all that stuff that we're talking about a stereotypical, Biff and Buffy.
No.
We're talking about the fact that when it comes to money, that's where, honestly, it's where African Americans are moving.
Yeah, and you have more affluent African Americans and Latino folks who are moving out to those areas because the inventory in which you would get in the city for that money you don't get a lot of the other benefits, or you get a house that's, a bajillion years old and you got to put another $200,000 into it.
And not everybody loves. I mean, I love my 100-year-old house that I stay in, but most people don't.
And everybody knows me. That's not my wave. Like, if I could live in something where I'm the first person to live in it, I think that's great. And so having this new development really starting out at, $499, between $499 and $569. I know it sounds like huge numbers for the average person, but those are the kind of people that the city also needs to begin to court as we start talking about development, reaching out beyond downtown, midtown, Corktown, spreading east and west, spreading further north. It's got to be more than just the people who make $60,000, $70,000, and $80,000 a year. Those people are important. We need those folks to fill out the neighborhoods, but you also need the luxury market. And to be honest, we got a lot of shoreline and not a lot of residential on our shoreline. When you really
well, let's talk about that though, because wasn't part of the idea that our shoreline is very community focused? Now, there's a lot of land that we could still develop on. Like when I went to that new newish stretch of the Riverfront Conservancy, or that area from the one park up to the Belle Isle Bridge, the MacArthur Bridge, there's still a lot of empty land over there, and you could fill in there. But these homes are like right on the water. Like you get a dock in your backyard, which is a whole different vibe. And there's actually still kind of limited options to live near or on the water, which is kind of a shame.
Unless you live in a condo. Like right now, that's
Harbortown.
Harbortown, or any over by Alden Towers and stuff like that. Like that's your choices, and a lot of people don't want that living. A lot of people's like, wow, I can get a house on the river, and if I got to pay $750,000 to get it, I will. And I think that's ultimately good. I think it's ultimately good to sort of court this type of buyer for the city of Detroit, because we need the tax base to kick up, and we could do it with attrition, but that's going to be a lot harder. I think if you can make it attractive to the big time wow factor buyer, I think you go out and capture those folks.
I mean, I will mention this because this is the horse that I will probably ride in on and die on. If we're going to be offering so many NEZs as we are, I really think at some point we should just admit it and just change the property tax code. Just bring it to the state average, because in reality, and we covered this actually on Threads, thank you to the 35,000 people on Threads who saw that casino post that I made. I don't know why, but I'll take it. Casino revenue brings in more money than property taxes in the city of Detroit.
Ridiculous.
And I feel like if we brought the rate where individuals don't feel so crushed, we'd see a lot more people coming through. And there's got to be a way to get foundations, other money, something, whatever, instead of the NEZ, which is temporary. And sometimes, and you deal with real estate, so when the NEZ expires, like there's stuff you got to deal with. It'd be better if we could just make the rate the rate.
There's paperwork, but beyond that, it is a factor of people saying, all right, we've been here for 15 years, we out. Like 15 years is from a kid going from 5 years old to 20, right? At that point, some people are going to be empty nesters. Like some people are going to say, do we need this house anymore in 15 years? And they're going to say no, and they're not going to deal with the new tax, or they're not going to deal with these sort of more regular tax after the NEZ expires. And so I think it's really important for the city of Detroit to get the tax code under control. And more than that, I think it's going to be important for them to continue to, if you're not going to get the tax code under control, you're going to have to do this 1,000 times over in 20 different neighborhoods and then say, all right, our tax situation is fixed. Do it the roundaway way, which is kind of annoying, but I feel like we're already with the amount that I see starting to pop up, I feel like we're going to see a lot of that. It's very clear that is the strategy of the city. The strategy of the city is we're going to give developers these NEZs and buyers these NEZs. We're going to have people come in, and they're going to get the benefit for 10, 15 years, and hopefully they all stay after their NEZ expires. It's a bit short-sighted. We'll see. It's an interesting plan, Cotton. We'll see if it works out.
Well, I mean, part of it is that you've got so many costs that are left over with the Detroit Public Schools and all these legacy costs that I feel like a very progressive administration in Lansing, we could come up with some true solutions, if we were to make it so it's not just a 1 or 2 person majority, but a larger Democratic majority, because and I don't mean to like knock on Republicans for this, but the reality is that if Republicans aren't going to care,
No.
they're just not going to care.
I mean,
it's not a priority for them because
and
they're not elected from there.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think looking at this, I think it's a good thing ultimately for the city. I think if you're going to do this development, I think a tax abatement is the only way you can do it. But the biggest takeaway for me is that creating a new luxury market for the city of Detroit from a single family home point of view is good. It's fantastic. It is a good thing. Sure, we need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and create affordable housing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but y'all, we need rich people in the city. We need flat out rich people in the city. This is every city you go to in America got some real rich people in it, and we need more. So let's just keep it funky.
And that's where I'm going to leave it. Norris Howard, so good to see you.
It's always good to be here.
Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, man, you can find me at Great Laker Nora. That's Nori on social media. And I'm getting ready to kick my YouTube back up. It's called We Get Around. It's going to be all about living in Detroit, real estate, and travel. So holla at me.
For sure. And, yeah, you can, of course, find Daily Detroit and all the places. We're mostly on Threads and Instagram as of late.
Love Threads.
And of course, send us an email, dailydetroit@gmail.com with your feedback. And don't forget to become a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. Without local support, we can't keep local media happening. So we've got great benefits, all kinds of things. You're going to want to check it out. All right, with that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Norris Howard.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you, along with this pheasant, around Detroit.
Hey.